Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Daily Objective. And we're going to be talking about the latest news involving the internet's Ethan Klein, who many of you may know. And please leave a like and hit that join button to help us out and to gain access to all types of cool stuff. All right. So Ethan Klein is a guy we've spoken about in the past on this channel, or I have. He was a very outspoken critic of the social justice sort of avalanche of around 2014, 15, 16. This whole, like, I guess what they called third wave feminist or social justice intersectional feminist type of commentary was gaining a lot of traction. And there was a huge sort of cottage industry of commentators critiquing the social justice philosophy. And Ethan Klein and his wife were very big. Their sort of claim to fame, I think, along with like people like Jordan Peterson and along with people like, I don't know, you tell me. I don't even remember off the top of my head. Chris Raygun was another one of these people. Their sort of rise to fame was in their reaction to the social justice philosophy that was gaining traction. And Ethan Klein, over the years, he kind of stopped doing that type of social justice reaction content. As time passed, he sort of transitioned very successfully over to a podcast, which is very, very successful. And his views have changed, as have many people's views changed. So, cynical people, they say, oh, he adjusted his views to appease the mainstream, which is true in a sense, but like kind of which came first, like the chicken or the egg? Like, is it that the mainstream, like he's appeasing the mainstream, or is it that the mainstream is the mainstream for a reason? Meaning it takes a very particular type of person to have answers to questions that the quote mainstream is posing. So if the social justice left are making certain claims about society, about the civilization we live in, and they're saying there's racism, there's homophobia, there's transphobia everywhere that needs to be addressed. At a certain point, if people don't have a coherent answer to that, they need to sort of either go with it and kind of join the mainstream, or they need to maybe go in the far opposite direction, which is another thing we've seen. So of that whole anti-social justice scene of around 2016, 2017, a whole lot of them, basically they became everything that they were accused of being in the first place. They became actual racists. Some of them, I'm saying, not all of them, but many of them became like actual alt-right, white nationalist, like race realists, whatever it is. They've come to see race as a very important part of who people are. And a whole lot of the other anti-social justice crowd, they actually ended up joining the social justice sort of movement, or I guess joining the mainstream as social justice has become part of the mainstream. And I think the Black Lives Matter movement played a huge role in kind of making people choose a side. The whole in the aftermath of the George Floyd death, a lot of people needed to pick one side or the other, or so they thought. So many people, they just said, okay, you know what, maybe the left isn't as bad as we thought. Clearly, there's a lot wrong with the society we live in, judging by the video of Derek Chauvin and George Floyd, et cetera, et cetera. Long story short, after I'm done telling this long story, is Ethan Klein is currently largely kind of a social justice warrior himself. That doesn't mean he's always wrong. It doesn't mean there's no racism or transphobia and et cetera, et cetera. That it doesn't mean there's no actual bigotry in the culture that's sort of part of the system, perhaps in the laws or in the sort of daily behavior of people. So I'm not here saying that anytime, I know for a lot of people, like the left is the bane of their existence. So anytime, quote, the left says anything, the opposite must be true, but that's not necessarily the case. So take abortion, for instance, largely the pro-abortion voices are coming from the left. And although maybe their reasons for being pro-abortion are not necessarily my reasons for being pro-abortion, we are both pro-abortion. So the left is not synonymous with incorrect per se. Ethan Klein has definitely alienated a lot of the people who liked him in the first place. And in recent years, he has taken an offensive strategy and actually sort of canceling, you can say, sort of criticizing the character of many people who are not, in agreement with him. Many people who are sort of still not kind of playing ball in terms of like, cleaning up their act and cleaning up their language and cleaning up their humor. He's basically kind of part of the cancel mob, Ethan is. And he himself kind of gets canceled on a regular basis. He does, these 2-hour long, 3-hour long podcasts several times a week. He's bound to say something that'll get him in trouble. So he ends up apologizing constantly because he is not looking to die on the hill of free speech. He is not looking to die on the hill of comedy or of unfiltered thought. He definitely has agreed to play ball. And again, cynical people could say, yeah, it's because he's appeasing the mainstream for financial considerations. And yes, it is true. If the more he gets in trouble, the more Ethan will lose financial backing of his podcast and sponsorships and all that. But that doesn't mean he disagrees with the stuff. Like, it doesn't mean he's being disingenuous, right? It's kind of like the mainstream is mainstream for a reason. There a lot of the premises in the mainstream have not been properly addressed. So jumping back to this sort of narrative, this sort of historical progression of the anti-social justice movement and what many of them have become, early on, they used to speak the language of individualism. So they would respond to the social justice leftist claims, and they would say, look, everyone's a person. Everyone's an individual. Everyone can make their own decision. So stop saying that all these people over here are racist or homophobic. Just judge them individually. And also don't put all gay people in one category. Don't put all blacks in one category. Everyone's an individual. That was the language people used to speak, and rightfully so. And it was encouraging to see. Back then I thought, wow, look, individualism is really on the rise. But unfortunately, individualism comes with the philosophy. It needs a leg to stand on intellectually. And sadly, the philosophical undertones of most of the culture still is not individualistic. It's not rational. It's largely collectivistic. It's largely riding on altruism as the moral ideal. So sooner or later, collectivism sort of wins, as we've seen. Ethan Klein most recently got in trouble for something he said in the aftermath of the horrific shooting that took place in Texas. If you haven't heard, there was a horrific shooting of very young students and teachers in a school in Texas. And of course, as we would expect, this raises a lot of voices, a lot of strong opinions about kind of how this could have been avoided and how to avoid this in the future. And of course, different people have very different answers to these questions. So some people say the answer is more guns in the hands of law-abiding citizens. Other people say, doing away with assault rifles or whatever it is that they want to do away with in the hands of average people. Kind of like more gun control versus even less gun control is sort of are the two voices we hear on how to address this type of horrific incident. And Ethan Klein is very much on the gun control side of this. He definitely, he sees the pro-gun crowd as like basically being responsible for shootings like the one we heard of recently. So Ethan he made a statement, something like, oh, the NRA are meeting in Texas now, kind of like in the aftermath of the massacre. The NRA are meeting in Texas now. Someone should bomb their building, or someone should bomb the building. Okay, now obviously that's a very bad joke to make. Okay, was it a joke? To me, it's like, it's not exactly a joke, but it's also not a call to action. So let's be very clear. So a lot of people, of course, said, oh, he's inciting violence. I don't think he meant to incite that, but his words could be seen as a very dangerous remark to make at a time like this, when people are so up in arms, pardon the pun, when people are so emotionally outraged and, again, trigger happy, another pun that I hate to use, but like it's not a wise way to speak at a time like this. When we know we live in a world where many people sort of idolize public figures like Ethan Klein, they sort of listen to every word they say, they hang on it, and when he says something like, yeah, someone should bomb that building, someone might actually do it. So I don't think Ethan Klein was actually agitating for someone to do that. I think his remark was kind of like, if you say like, oh, I hate that guy, I hope he drops dead, you're just kind of like being hyperbolic, being negative. If that person were to then drop dead, you probably would not celebrate. You would probably be kind of freaked out and sort of regret the sentiment you had expressed. So that's what Ethan Klein said. He said someone should bomb that building where the NRA are meeting. And as you can expect, many, many people are wanting him to be reprimanded. Ethan Klein's podcast episode, the H3 podcast, that channel on YouTube received a strike. 3 strikes and you're out. 3 strikes and your whole channel is terminated. So he got 1 strike, and strikes tend to last for 3 months. So basically, lay low for 3 months. Lay low is kind of what you do, because you get 3 strikes, you lose it all, which is a really dumb system, by the way. This system was created in the infancy of YouTube, back when YouTube was a much smaller website that had only been around for a much less time. But at this point, every YouTube channel that's been around for a while has such a huge backlog of videos. So you can get a strike at any time for something that you forgot about from years ago. There should be like a statute of limitations. You know, if a video is, let's say, over a year old or something, then YouTube might delete it, but not give you a strike. That would be one, I think, better way for them to do it. I don't know how they can do this better, but the more time passes and if YouTube remains as relevant as it is, so many people are going to be uploading videos onto YouTube for such a long amount of time to come that getting 3 strikes will basically be like a statistical likelihood. So the internet basically has always been too good to be true, I've often said. I mean, not often, or I've been saying it recently and seeing kind of what's been going on. When John Stossel sued Facebook for something, for one of their, did they remove it? Or they added like a warning on John Stossel's post on Facebook, and then he sued them, I think, for defamation or something like that. And I said, maybe Stossel's perspective is valid, but like, it's the internet. You don't know who the hell's on the other side of this this move by Facebook. You don't know what's going on behind the scenes at YouTube. There's so much going on. It's basically a bunch of Uber drivers that are running these websites or making important decisions that affect people's lives. Like, you know, there's so much being uploaded on the internet every second of every day. So how are these websites, how are these companies going to be able to get to it all? They basically hire freelance people. So like I say, it's like Uber drivers. They just get whoever's like available and seems to basically be up to the task. And who are these people they're hiring? Do they know how to address these very nuanced issues? It's kind of a roll of the dice, whether those people are going to delete your content or not. You know, one of these YouTube moderators might watch this episode here today and they're like half paying attention, and all they hear me do is quoting Ethan Klein, and they think I'm saying someone should bomb the building, and they delete this video and maybe the whole channel, right? And then what do? Send an email out into the ether and hope that somebody reads it. It's like the internet is like, it's given us such an opportunity to reach so many people and to grow so big. But at the same time, it's like, how long is this really sustainable? I've been wondering. And it becomes especially evident to me that this is unsustainable when I see someone like Ethan Klein making the remark that he made. And it made me remember, before the internet, every TV show and every TV station had, as they still do, a legal department and an HR department and this department and that department, that, and maybe even a government bureaucrat, you know, nearby to kind of make sure like what's okay to post on TV, to air on TV. Once upon a time, TV airwaves and radio airwaves were like the internet, right? That's my understanding. Some private citizens discovered a way to communicate, and that's, you know, and radio was born. And so the government decided, okay, this is ours. This is a public good, and we're going to regulate what's permitted on the radio and on television. They never had a right to take that. Like, that was never the government's thing to take, but they did. There was never a good answer by, you know, defenders of property rights other than people like Ayn Rand. No one ever, to my knowledge, made a coherent statement. I mean, maybe other people did make coherent arguments against the government nationalizing the radio and TV, but nonetheless, those arguments did not win. And as time passed, people just kind of took for granted that, yeah, the government runs, they're in charge of TV and radio. So there's the FCC, right? The Federal Communications Commission, does it stand for? And if you then swear on network television, you get a big fine and possibly, you know, legal problem bigger than that. So people just assume like, yep, the government's purview includes television and radio. Now, of course, cable TV came along, which Now you need to pay, let's say, $40 a month or $100 a month to gain access to these additional channels, which now the government was not regulating and in charge of. So what's the difference really? Like, why was it that the government could tell us what we can say on regular TV, but not on cable TV? I don't think there's a great answer to that question. Now the internet then comes around, and now it's deuces wild. Now all bets are off. Everyone anywhere can post anything online. So as long as it falls within the confines of the law, like it's not someone being abused or something like that, basically you can post anything you want on the internet, and the government is not regulating it. But given that there is a track record and a sort of consent by the public, consent by most people in the world we live in, for the government to kind of take over stuff, it might just be a matter of time before the government just takes over the internet and just says, the internet is so big now that it's basically television. Everyone has access to it, and we need to regulate what's being said on it. That's one aspect of this. Another aspect of why the internet might have a shorter shelf life than we realize is because on legal grounds, right? Like I said, TV stations would always have a legal department, and they still do, but like you have to be careful what you say publicly, right? Like you could get sued and you could get arrested. And so here's an example of Ethan Klein saying something that he should be a little bit concerned when you make a statement like that, even though you didn't mean it as a literal call to action. Don't be shocked if like the FBI pulls up and makes your life hell for a while. You got to be very careful. So again, his statement never would have been allowed on regular TV or on cable TV. But his Ethan Klein's remark about someone should bomb that building would never be allowed on any sort of major studio production. But because it's just a guy in his house with a microphone and a webcam, he just says it, and the world hears it. So on legal grounds, it may become just kind of unsustainable for companies like YouTube and Facebook to permit anyone on. Like it could get to the point where just everyone's suing everyone. Now that's for the legal aspect of this. Another aspect of it is, commercially, is YouTube going to lose a lot of sponsorships? Like, is YouTube going to lose a lot of their monetization opportunities, right? Is Coca-Cola, for instance, going to stop running ads on YouTube because YouTube is a place where popular figures make statements like someone should bomb that building? You see what I'm saying? So there's the fact. So there's several aspects to why the internet might have a short shelf life. One of them being the government tends to take over stuff that are big and popular and controversial. Another aspect of this, on legal grounds, it may actually become legally unsustainable for companies like YouTube to permit free speech or unregulated speech on their platform by unqualified people, untrained, unqualified fools. And a third aspect of this is again, commercially, like where's the money going to come from if companies want nothing to do with a website that is affiliated with remarks made by Ethan Klein? So, as you can expect, a lot of people feel that Ethan Klein is being given a pass because he's a good left-leaning commentator at this point. So they're saying, oh, look, Ethan should be terminated, and he would be terminated if he was not on the left. And there may be truth to that. But also, we've seen a lot of people get away with all types of stuff. Ben Shapiro and his company is huge on YouTube, and they're certainly not on the left. Other right-leaning YouTubers and entertainers and commentators on the internet are certainly not on the left, and they're certainly getting a lot of traffic and making a lot of money. So I think it's a little bit of an overgeneralization when people just say like, oh, Ethan Klein gets to say whatever he wants, but I don't get to say what I want. It's like, are you really, really sure you've thought this through? I wonder. Okay. If the internet is going into a new direction in the near future, thank you for joining us. This has been a great journey we've been on together. I'm kind of kidding. I think we'll be able to do this for a while. Basically, we'll be able to express ideas freely, but it may become almost like the TSA at the airport, where like you sort of go through a process of demonstrating that you're not a terrorist, and then you get to kind of rush past the security line because you've been pre-approved. That could be what's going to happen. Or it could happen that many more smaller websites will emerge that are less impactful than YouTube, and they can sort of afford to let more freaks saying whatever they want to. There's a lot left to be seen. There's not an easy answer to any of this. It'll also be interesting to see how someone like Ethan Klein evolves if he is not in fact done evolving. Maybe maybe his views will change in time because, like I said, he gets canceled as much as anyone because he's in the public light saying so many things that people still find offensive despite his left-leaning tendencies. So I wonder if at some point Ethan Klein will get into so much trouble with the cancel culture leftists that he actually will end up kind of moving back to kind of where he was when we first met him, when we first found him. There's a lot left to be seen. All right. Thank you, by the way. We got super chats from Marilyn and from Bonnie. Thank you for that. We have no other super chats. We do have some members commenting here. Yeah, Robert, Ali, we got Marilyn and Marilyn again. Marilyn says, it's not simple, but I think getting government out of education could help. Is that in reference to the violence taking place in schools? I suppose so. But if you also mean getting the government out of schools could make the world a much more coherent and rational place, certainly that's kind of at the root of a lot of this. You know, people ask, well, if you could change one thing, what would you change? And I think the answer needs to be privatize education yesterday. First thing. And it might be counterintuitive because you think, no, the medical industry needs to be unregulated. The finance, and certainly those things do need to be. Finance being unregulated would definitely, I think, raise our standard of living, which would sort of fuel the spreading of good ideas and give many more people access to private education, et cetera. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you had to pick just one thing to do first, I would say put all of your eggs in the basket of abolishing government schools, because kind of that's where the real innovation needs to happen fast. That's where capitalism is needed most, I think. And with the privatization of schools, I think you would see, first of all, better critical thinkers, more coherent, rationally selfish students growing up, and better ideas, kind of making their way into the school system, making their way into the classroom. And far fewer people being brainwashed and having their brains scrambled in the incoherent, progressive education that we see being administered. All right. Thank you all for joining us today. This has been a wonderful discussion. I hope I've articulated my pessimism about the future of the internet, and hope you enjoyed it. Coming up today, by the way, Marilyn with another super chat. Thank you for that. Coming up today at 7 p.m. UK time. And before I continue, Ali with $2 says, did YouTube try to take your channel due to COVID info? No, I think ARCUK got reprimanded once. We had an episode of the Daily Objective deleted by YouTube and like one strike given to the channel. Again, 3 strikes and your channel is terminated. So, be careful. And that was during like the height of like COVID mania. So that happened, but that, getting one strike and a video removed is not the same as being banned or something. But don't tell the right, don't tell the conservatives on YouTube who just live to embellish and to exaggerate. So anytime somebody gets not even deleted, but they get like a video demonetized, like this video due to controversial topics will have limited or no ads running on it. The headline that you see from, right-leaning YouTube channels is, I'm banned, I'm suspended. Can you just not cry wolf? I know what being suspended looks like, and it is not a yellow $sign instead of a green one on your dashboard. Back to the announcements for later today. At 7 p.m. UK time, it's the Fountainhead Book Club, open to members. What a great time to become a member of the channel. Hit that join button or go to the link down below to become a member of ARCUK and get access to the Fountainhead Book Club. And then at 9 p.m. UK time, it's James Valiant discussing Ayn Rand's introduction to the Fountainhead 25th anniversary edition. As I recall, there was a discussion in that intro about the word egoist. In the original version of the Fountainhead, Rand said, like a tyrant, like via channeling Howard Rourke in his speech, he says, A dictator is not an egotist. But Rand later realized she meant to have him say a dictator is not an egoist. He is an egotist. An egotist is like the bad kind of egoist, like someone who's not actually being rationally selfish. Anyway, there's your preview. Then at 10 p.m. UK time, it's Artful Tuesdays with Kirk Barbera and Tom Nowak. They'll be discussing William Wordsworth's poem, Tintern Abbey. And that's pre-recorded. So, don't go super chatting and expecting them to read it. But please super chat because it's the right thing to do in cahoots with your values. That was not meant to be like some intrinsicist duty-based call to super chat. All right. Next week on Monday at 9 p.m. UK time, HBTV with Harry Binswanger will be on the topic of gun control and open immigration. They are in the same boat. Provocative enough for some of you. So check that out. It's a special announcement just because that we're talking about gun control and all of that. All right, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. This has been wonderful. See you back here tomorrow, same time for the Daily Objective. And goodbye.